At the very moment that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was in a room at the Pentagon with senior Trump administration officials, apparently calling the president a moron, the president was saying this about that same meeting that he was just in that same room with those same officials.
The meeting was great. It was a very good meeting. Tremendous people, Pentagon, nothing like it. The job they do, absolutely incredible.
There is no reported account of that meeting that calls it a great meeting or even a good meeting. It was the meeting that provoked the Secretary of State to call the president a moron as soon as the president left the room, because as NBC News reported today, President Donald Trump said he wanted what amounted to a nearly tenfold increase in the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Trump's comments, the official said, came in response to a briefing slide he was shown that charted the steady reduction of U.S. nuclear weapons since the late 1960s. Now, here is an example of that chart that the president was shown, indicating a peak of about 32,000 nuclear weapons in the late 1960s, down to a low of approximately 4,000 today. And what you see at the top of that chart is the U.S. government chart. There are the notations of the various treaties that the United States entered into over that period of time that led to the reduction of nuclear weapons in the United States and the Soviet Union and then Russia. You see SALT I, SALT II, START I, START II. NBC News reported today that officials briefly explained the legal and practical impediments to a nuclear buildup and how the current military posture is stronger than it was at the height of the buildup. The July 20th meeting was described as a lengthy and sometimes tense review of worldwide U.S. forces and operations. It was soon after the meeting broke up that officials who remained behind heard Tillerson say that Trump is a moron. Some officials in the Pentagon meeting were rattled by the president's desire for more nuclear weapons. It's unclear which portion of the Pentagon briefing prompted Tillerson to call the president a moron after the meeting broke up and some advisors were gathered around. Officials who attended the two-hour session said it included a number of tense exchanges. Tense exchanges with a president the Secretary of State apparently regards as a moron, and that president publicly describes the meeting as great. This may be one of many such meetings that Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee says he has heard about that have led him to this conclusion.
I think Secretary Tillerson, Secretary Mattis, and Chief of Staff Kelly are those people that help separate our country from chaos.
And this week, Senator Bob Corker described the Trump presidency's chaos as putting us on the path to World War III. Joining us now, George Mitchell, a former U.S. Senator from Maine who was the Senate Majority Leader. He was also a Mideast negotiator for President Clinton. Senator, I've never seen any conditions like this. I've never heard of meetings like this. You've been at this longer than most people I know. Are you ever in a meeting where somebody referred to a president as a moron?
No, and I think it's most unfortunate. But Lawrence, that segment demonstrated, I think, rather clearly that we are at a dangerous moment in our history. The president made many controversial statements during the presidential campaign, many of which he's since reversed. That NATO was obsolete, now he's for it. He was going to brand China currency manipulator on the first day. He hasn't done so. The one statement that concerned me the most, which to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware that he's reversed it, is when he said it might be a good thing if South Korea, Japan, and Saudi Arabia got a nuclear weapon. To me, that demonstrated a lack of understanding of the history of nuclear weapons. First, how unique they are, so vastly different from any weapon that's ever been devised or used in armed conflict. But secondly, how the United States has led the world in enacting a regime to restrain the dissemination of nuclear weapons. That's been a principal foreign policy objective of the United States for over half a century, largely successful. There are dozens of countries that now have the capacity to build a nuclear weapon. The majority of them have refrained from doing so in reliance upon the United States and the nuclear non-proliferation regime. we should not be trying to expand the number of nations. We should be trying to contract it and to reduce the number of weapons. And here we are now with the president about to take a step with respect to Iran that will place us in a perilous situation, just as we're trying to deal with the situation in North Korea. Unless the Senate shows restraint, the United States will soon be faced in Iran with two terrible choices: either to allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon, which will dissolve the non-proliferation regime, or go to war to prevent it. In North Korea, it's very dangerous, as we all know, given the nature of the regime and the leader there, and this bellicose rhetoric back and forth. These are very dangerous times, and my hope is that the president himself will first reverse the statements that I referred to and exercise some restraint, and if he does not do so, that the Senate will do so, because it has it in its power to maintain the treaty with Iran. I
want to play you what the president said just in the last hour on Fox News to Sean Hannity about the Iran deal, and he talks about money in here as if it came out of the American taxpayer's pocket. Let's listen to this.
I think it was one of the most incompetently drawn deals I've ever seen. $150 billion given. We got nothing. We got nothing. They got a path to nuclear weapons very quickly. And think of this one, $1.7 billion in cash. This is cash out of your pocket. What? You know how many airplane loads that must be? Did you ever see $1 million like a promotion where they have $1 million in $100 bills? It's a lot of. This is $1.7 billion. You'd almost say, who would be authorized to do it, and who are the people that deliver it? You may never see them again, right? But,
plane loads.
But just plane loads. So this is the worst deal. We got nothing. We got nothing.
It's impossible for me to tell whether he knows he's lying about the cash coming out of our pockets.
Well, with respect to the office of the presidency, his statement is a complete misrepresentation of the terms of the agreement. What we've gotten is that, as we all know, Iran is in full compliance with the terms of the agreement. They've reduced their stockpile of uranium by 98%. They've rendered inoperable a major facility. They've reduced the number of operating centrifuges by 2/3, and they've submitted to the most intensive inspection regime that ever has existed with respect to such weapons. And the president himself has twice certified that they are in compliance with the agreement, as has the independent agency conducting it. The agreement is imperfect, as are all negotiated agreements. Both sides give something. It would be better if it were permanent, but that was not attainable. So I think it's a valuable step forward, and contrary to his statement, it doesn't put Iran on a path to a nuclear weapon. It does just the opposite.
Senator Mitchell, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Us. Always appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.